All right, so the goal of this example is to find the derivative of the function x squared plus 2x plus 1 using the power rule for derivatives. So these problems in general are meant to be practice because the sooner you master the power rule, the easier your calculus life will become, because this is one of the easier of the derivative rules, and it will help you solve a number of derivatives using even more complicated rules, such as the power rule, the product rule, the chain rule, or the quotient rule, which we'll talk about later. The power rule, as we discussed in the lesson, is up here in the right-hand corner of this screen. The idea is that you're going to take this power on x, move it down in front, multiplying it by whatever it is out in front, and then you subtract 1 from the exponent. So that's how you get what this arrow points to. And that's how we're going to do all of these problems from now until basically the end of time, anytime you have to use this power rule to solve derivatives. So let's see if we can apply that to our function in question here. Derivatives are linear functions, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this term by term. So derive each term and then add them together. All right, so let's take care of this first one here, this x squared. So the idea is you take your exponent, you move it down in front, and subtract 1 from the exponent. So what does that give you? It gives you 2 out in front of the x, and then 2 minus 1 in the exponent gives you 1. Technically speaking, we don't need to write that 1 in the exponent because x to the first power is just x, so you can just write it as x. Don't need the first power. But if it's helpful for you to keep it there, you can keep it. That's fine. All right, so now that was the first term. Second term, we have 2 times x. So this is the same thing as 2x to the first power, technically speaking. So you can use the power rule here in the same way. So you can take your 1, you bring it down in front, you multiply it by that 2, and subtract 1 from the exponent. So what does that give you? That gives you 1 times 2 times x to the 0th. Okay, so what is anything to the 0th power? Well, basically anything. Hopefully you said 1. And that would be correct. This x to the 0th is actually equal to 1. So we can erase it because that's what it's equal to. It's equal to 1. So just do that instead. 1 times 2 times 1, well, that's just 2. So you can erase these 1s here. It's the same thing. So as a shortcut, kind of erasing what we have going on here, when you have like a constant times x, the x just goes away, leaving you with whatever was in front. Okay? Now let's take a look at this last thing here. When you derive a constant functions are flat. Remember, a derivative is a formula for slope. So constant, like a function that is constantly 1 is a line that is flat at height 1. The slope of that is 0. So the derivative of any constant is always 0. All right, so adding 0 doesn't add anything to our function, and so that's what we end up with, 2x plus 2.